Detective Papk receives a mysterious call from a woman named Elara Finch, whose brother vanished after mentioning a house on Gorse Street. My name is Papk. Just Papk. No one ever asked if there was more to it, and I never volunteered an explanation. Names, like shadows, grow longer when the light behind them is wrong. It was nearly midnight when the rain began to sound like whispering hands against the window of my office. The city below was drowning in its own reflections, street lamps bleeding gold into puddles, the air thick with a metallic taste that warned of something uncanny. That's when the call came. A woman's voice, trembling, low, as though afraid that something might be listening behind her. She said her name was Elara Finch. Her brother had gone missing 2 nights ago. His last message mentioned a house on Gorse Street. She begged me not to go there. Then the line went dead. Gorse Street lay on the edge of the old quarter, where the map itself seemed to fade at the corners. I'd heard things about that place, how dogs wouldn't pass its gate, how some nights, windows glowed from the inside though no one lived there. Still, curiosity has always been my curse. So I took my coat, my old revolver, and a flask of whiskey that no longer burned when it should have. When I reached the house, I knew at once that something was wrong with the air itself. It felt heavy, as if soaked in forgotten breath. The rain had stopped, but drops still fell from the eaves, steady as the ticking of a clock I couldn't see. I stepped inside. The floorboards groaned like something alive, and the scent hit me. A mix of mildew, wax, and something faintly sweet, like rotting fruit. A candle was burning on the hallway table, its flames strangely steady despite the draft. Beneath it, I saw a note written in hurried strokes. Don't trust the mirrors. That's when I realized there were mirrors everywhere. Tall ones, cracked ones, some draped in lace, some reflecting light that shouldn't exist. And in one of them, I thought I saw someone standing behind me. But when I turned, there was no one. I stood there for a long while, watching my own reflection watch me back. The flame from the candle danced across the mirrors, fracturing into dozens of pale ghosts of light. Each shimmer seemed to twitch a moment slower than it should have, as though the reflections were thinking before they moved. I told myself it was just the drink, or the storm still humming in my blood. But then something else moved. Not in the mirrors, behind them. It was faint, like a shape drifting through smoke. The glass quivered, and a cold breath rolled across the back of my neck. I turned again. Empty air, silent house. Yet the note on the table, it had changed. The words now read, "You shouldn't have come alone." My throat went dry. I stepped backward, bumping into a hallway wall covered in peeling wallpaper. A section of it pulsed under my touch, soft and damp, as if the wall itself were breathing. I drew my revolver, though against what, I couldn't say. The metal felt heavier than usual, as though the air around me had thickened into syrup. I followed the hall deeper into the house. Every step made the shadows bend. A sound rose from the far room, a soft humming. A lullaby, maybe. The kind you'd hear a mother sing to a child who hadn't been born right. I pushed the door open. The room was lined with even more mirrors, and in the center stood a wooden chair facing the wall. The humming stopped. The air trembled, and then a reflection, one of them, turned its head toward me. Only the reflection. Not the chair. Not the real room. Just the thing inside the glass. Its mouth opened wide, too wide, and whispered, "Papk." It knew my name. The sound of my name hung in the air long after the whisper faded, trembling like a plucked wire. Every instinct told me to leave, to get out before the house learned what I smelled like, what I feared. But curiosity is a slow kind of death, and I've never been good at dying quickly. I stepped closer to the mirror. The face staring back wasn't mine anymore. The jaw was slightly off, the eyes darker than they should have been, bottomless, like ink poured into a well. I raised my revolver. My reflection did not. It simply smiled. The whisper came again, softer this time, from somewhere above me. "You came because of her." The light flickered. Every mirror in the room shivered, and for a brief, impossible moment, I saw figures inside them. Faces pressed against glass, their mouths moving soundlessly, their eyes pleading for release. The air tasted of metal and rot. Then, silence. I forced myself to turn away. The chair in the center of the room had shifted, now facing me directly. On its seat lay a damp photograph, the edges curling from age. Elara Finch, the woman who had called me, standing beside her brother, and behind them, that same cursed house. But in the photo, there was something else. In the upper window of the house, a figure stood watching. It looked like me. My pulse slowed, heavy as a drum. I felt watched, not just by the mirrors, but by the walls themselves. Then, faintly, from somewhere deep within the house, came the slow creak of another door opening. Something else was here, and it knew I had seen the photograph. The sound came again, a long, strained creak that echoed through the walls like a groan from the bones of the house itself. It was coming from the corridor I hadn't yet explored, a passage swallowed by darkness so thick it seemed to drink the candlelight from my hand. I moved toward it slowly, revolver ready, my breath a pale ghost in the cold air. Each step made the floor sigh, as though the house were alive and exhausted from holding too many secrets. At the end of the hallway stood a door I could have sworn hadn't been there when I entered. The wood looked swollen, almost pulsing, the paint peeling in uneven strips. A low noise came from behind it, a rhythmic, wet sound, like someone dragging their hand across the inside of a throat. I tried the handle. It was warm. When the door opened, a wave of damp, stale air rolled out, carrying the smell of soil and something older, something that had been buried too long. The room beyond was narrow and dim. Its walls were covered in photographs, hundreds of them, overlapping like scales. Each showed a different person staring straight into the camera, their faces frozen mid-expression, fear, grief, surprise. And in the background of every photo, the same faint silhouette hovered behind them. My silhouette. I felt my skin tighten. I stepped closer, scanning the faces, until one made my stomach lurch, Elara Finch. Her picture was newer, the edges not yet yellowed. Her eyes were wide, mouth half open as though she'd tried to scream before the shutter clicked. Below her photo, someone had scrawled in shaky handwriting. "You'll see what she saw." The walls began to tremble, and I realized with horror that the photographs were not tacked onto plaster at all. They were plastered onto flesh. The house was breathing. Then, behind me, the door clicked shut. The click of the door behind me was too soft, too calm. That quiet, the kind that hums in the bones just before something awful happens. I spun around and threw my shoulder against the door. It didn't budge. The wood had gone soft beneath my hand, pulsing faintly, warm like a living thing. My candle flickered and spat wax down my wrist. The air had thickened, wet and hot, and the smell of decay had deepened into something animal. The photographs began to curl at the edges, their surfaces slick. One by one, they started to move. A slow ripple ran through the faces, as if each mouth were about to form a word, each pair of eyes about to blink. Then they did. Hundreds of them, blinking in unison, staring at me. Some began to whisper, voices overlapping like a broken choir. "He came back. He came back. He shouldn't have come back." My hand trembled as I lifted the revolver. "Enough," I muttered, though my voice came out as more of a plea than a threat. The faces twitched, and one near my shoulder, an old man with cloudy eyes, opened his mouth wide and screamed. No sound, just a sucking rush of air, as if the room itself were inhaling. Then the candle died. I was swallowed by blackness. The only thing left was the sound of breathing, not mine, not human. Slow, deliberate, coming from the far corner of the room. I raised my gun, though I couldn't see a thing. My thumb found the hammer, drew it back with a metallic click. And then, in the dark, a voice, low, rasping, close enough that I felt its breath. "Papk, you took my face." For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. The voice was inches from me, whispering through the dark like smoke curling inside my ear. It wasn't angry, not yet. It was curious, wounded, almost human. "I don't know what you mean," I whispered back, though I already knew that in this house, answers didn't matter. Only recognition did. Something brushed my sleeve. Cold, wet fingers, tracing the shape of my arm as if trying to remember it. I jerked away, firing into the dark. The flash of the revolver lit the room for the briefest heartbeat, long enough for me to see that the walls were now slick, the photographs melting, their faces dripping down like candle wax. And in the corner, a figure stood. Tall, thin, featureless, its face a smear of shifting shadows. When the light faded, its voice came again, more insistent this time. "You took my face, Papk. You left me in the mirror." The words sank into me like ice. The mirror, the one in the first room, the reflection that smiled when I hadn't. My pulse hammered. "Who are you?" I demanded, though the question felt foolish the moment it left my lips. The figure moved closer. The darkness moved with it, bending, trembling. I could smell it now, damp earth and old metal, the scent of graves not properly closed. "Who am I?" It echoed softly, almost mournful. "I am what you looked away from." And then it lunged. Its hands struck my chest, cold fire, throwing me backward into the wall. My head hit something hard. Sparks bloomed behind my eyes. For a moment, everything blurred into black ripples and the sound of the house exhaling. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the photo-lined room. I was standing in a hallway filled with fog. At the end of it, a door stood open, and beyond that door, I heard a heartbeat. Not mine. The heartbeat was slow, steady, and far too loud for something that wasn't inside me. Each thud seemed to pulse through the fog, making the walls tremble as though the entire house shared one dark, ancient pulse. I took a step forward. The fog recoiled, twisting away from my boots like something alive. My gun was gone, lost when the faceless thing threw me, but the weight of dread in my chest was weapon enough. The closer I came to the door, the more the sound changed. It wasn't just a heart anymore. There were two, one strong and human, the other, slower, deeper, dragging behind, as though buried beneath the first. I reached the doorway. Inside, the room was small, windowless. The walls were covered not in mirrors this time, but in veins. They pulsed faintly, glowing red beneath the plaster, spreading toward the center where something hung suspended in the air. It was a mirror, cracked and bleeding light, and in its reflection, I saw Elara Finch. She was standing behind me, pale and shaking, her eyes wide with a terror that felt like recognition. "Elara," I whispered. "You're alive." She didn't move. Her lips trembled, and then the reflection, not her, spoke. "He took it from me, and now it's taking him." I spun around. No one was there. The mirror began to hum, its surface rippling like water disturbed by breath. My reflection looked wrong again, skin too pale, eyes too hollow. It smiled, but I didn't. From behind the glass, the faceless thing began to form. Its shape pressed outward, cracking the mirror further. Each heartbeat made the fissures glow. And then I understood. The house was a body, and the mirror was its heart. Something inside it wanted out. The glass bulged, then burst. And the lights went red. When the mirror shattered, the room seemed to inhale. Shards hung in the air like suspended raindrops, each one catching that crimson light and spinning it into brief, bleeding halos. Then the light dimmed, and something stepped through the broken frame. It was me, or almost me. The figure had my height, my coat, even the scar above my eyebrow. But its eyes were hollow sockets filled with slow-moving smoke, and its smile was carved too wide, stretching up toward where ears should have been. It stared at me as though studying a poor imitation. "You shouldn't have come," it said, though the sound didn't come from its mouth. It came from the shards still floating between us, each piece of glass whispering part of the sentence. I backed away, but the room shrank with me. The veins along the walls darkened, pulsing faster. The double cocked its head, that grotesque grin trembling. "You made me when you looked too long," it said. "You stared into the wrong part of yourself, and the house remembered." The air filled with a smell of copper and wet stone. My skin prickled. Behind the doppelganger, the reflection of Elara flickered again, trapped in the fragments, watching. Her eyes pleaded, but for what? I couldn't tell. Help or mercy. The thing stepped closer. The shadows clung to its coat like smoke in reverse, moving toward the light instead of away from it. I grabbed the nearest shard of mirror from the floor, its edge sharp enough to bite. "If you're me," I said, "you know I don't scare easy." It smiled wider. "That's the lie that made you mine." Then it lunged. But instead of colliding with me, it passed through me, leaving the smell of ash and the taste of blood in my mouth. I gasped and stumbled, clutching my chest. My reflection in the remaining glass no longer moved when I did. I was on the wrong side now. At first, I thought I'd gone blind. Then I realized the darkness wasn't absence, it was depth. Endless, liquid black pressing against me from all sides. The air here had weight, like I was standing underwater, and every breath felt stolen from something that didn't want me to have it. My reflection, the thing, was gone from sight, though I could still hear it moving. Not footsteps. Something softer. The sound of fabric dragging across glass, slow and deliberate. I tried to move, but my limbs felt heavy, muffled. My hand brushed against something smooth, cold, like the inside of a coffin. A faint shimmer ran under my fingertips, and I saw, for an instant, the other side. The room I'd just left, my body standing there motionless while it, my double, examined my revolver. It looked down at me through the cracked glass and whispered, "Now I'll see what you see." I slammed my fists against the barrier, shouting, but my voice came out distorted, warped into a dozen ghostly echoes. The figure only tilted its head, then turned and walked away. The darkness around me shifted. The surface beneath my feet rippled like water. In the distance, faintly, I saw other shapes, faces half-formed, floating in the black. Their eyes glowed faintly, like fish deep in a sunless ocean. "Elara," I called. One of the faces moved closer. It wasn't her. It was the old man from the wall of photographs, his mouth still stretched in that silent scream. When he spoke, it wasn't words. It was a rush of whispers, hundreds layered together until I could barely separate them. But one phrase cut through clear as a blade. "Find the heart. Break it, before it wears you." Then his face dissolved into the dark, and I felt the ground vanish beneath me. I fell, endlessly, through a reflection that had no bottom. Falling through glass doesn't feel like falling through air. It feels like being remembered by something you tried to forget. The black around me shimmered in places, memories flickering like trapped moths. I saw flashes of my own life. Rain-soaked alleys, faces of the lost, 100 cases that ended wrong. But between those memories were others, ones that weren't mine. A child's laughter echoing from a basement. A woman whispering prayers in a language I didn't know. The slow creak of a rope tightening. And always, beneath it all, the sound of that heartbeat. When I hit the ground, it wasn't with pain, but with silence. I was standing in a vast space. No ceiling, no horizon. Just a shallow pool of black water stretching forever. The ripples under my boots glowed faintly red, pulsing to that rhythm I'd come to dread. At the center of that endless dark stood something tall and shrouded in cloth, like a figure wrapped for burial. It swayed slightly, as though breathing. I waded toward it, each step stirring slow, syrupy waves. The figure lifted its head, or what passed for one. Beneath the fabric, I saw veins of light running like molten cracks through stone. And in its chest, beating inside a transparent cage of glass, was a heart made of mirrors. Each pulse showed me a different reflection, Elara's terrified face, the faceless thing, and then my own. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once. "You broke the mirror, but not the truth." "What are you?" I demanded. The thing's face split open, not bleeding but reflecting light outward. Inside, I saw fragments of every version of myself that had ever looked into a mirror, some alive, some not. "I am what you leave behind when you don't believe what you see," it said. Then the mirrored heart began to crack. With each fracture, I felt my pulse falter, because it wasn't its heart breaking. It was mine. The pain came slow at first, a tightness in my ribs, then a shudder that spread like fire through my veins. Each beat of that mirrored heart echoed inside me, slightly out of rhythm, until I realized the awful truth. The house was sinking me to it. The water at my feet began to rise, thick and red now, glowing faintly as it reached my knees. The reflection on its surface showed not the room around me, but scenes flickering. Elara, bound to a chair in some shadowed corner. The faceless version of me watching her, its grin stretching wider every second. I gritted my teeth and stepped closer to the heart. Cracks laced across its mirrored surface like frost, and through them I glimpsed shapes writhing. Faces trapped, pressing against the inside like souls caught mid-scream. The shrouded figure lifted its arms slowly, and the cloth peeled away to reveal nothing beneath but light. Too bright, too wrong. "If you destroy the heart," it said in that many-voiced whisper, "you destroy the house. And everything it remembers." I didn't hesitate. I drove my fist into the heart. The glass screamed. "No," sang, a sound like 1,000 windows shattering in the same instant. The reflection exploded outward, cutting my skin with silver edges. I fell back, clutching my chest, blood mixing with the mirrored shards that rained down like glittering ash. The light dimmed. The ground trembled. The water drained away into nothing. For a moment, silence. Then, faintly, a whisper not from the heart, but from within me. You broke me. Now you must wear me. My reflection appeared again on the nearest shard, only it didn't move when I did. It blinked once, smiled, and then, impossibly, reached out from the glass. The hand that broke through the shard was my own, but not flesh. It was made of glass, sharp-edged and shining, dripping with threads of light instead of blood. The fingers twitched, searching the air as though feeling for something familiar, or for me. When it touched my cheek, it was cold enough to burn. I tried to pull away, but my feet were locked in place. The reflection, my other self, was climbing out of the shard now, dragging its mirrored body across the dark like a spider leaving its web. With every movement, pieces of it cracked and reformed, the sound like whispering laughter. You broke the house, it said softly. But you didn't break me. Its voice wasn't coming from its mouth. It came from inside my head, vibrating through my skull like a thought that didn't belong to me. Where's Elara? I demanded, my voice shaking. It smiled. She's where you left her, inside the glass, waiting for someone to believe she's real. That sentence tore through me. For the first time, I realized that maybe she'd never been calling for help. Maybe she'd been calling me back. The thing leaned closer. Its breath fogged the air between us, except the fog drifted into me instead of away. You took my face once, it whispered. Now take it again. Before I could move, it pressed its forehead to mine. The world went white. I saw flashes, rooms folding in on themselves, mirrors turning black, faces I'd seen on the walls screaming as they shattered into dust. And beneath it all, one final heartbeat. Not from the house, not from the heart, but from inside me. When the light faded, I was standing again in the first room of the house, the candles still burning on the hallway table. The note beneath it was gone, and every mirror showed only me. But not one of them moved when I did at first. I thought the silence meant it was over. The house stood still around me. No whispers, no trembling floorboards, no heartbeat. Just the soft hiss of rain outside and the faint scent of extinguished candles. But then I realized something was wrong. Too still, too quiet. I lifted my hand. The reflection didn't follow. Instead, it turned its head on its own, slowly, with that same small, deliberate motion I'd seen before. Its eyes were bright now, as if something alive pulsed behind them. Papk, it said, and this time the sound came from every mirror at once. The chorus of my own voice filled the hall, each tone slightly out of sync, like echoes in a cave that had learned how to answer back. The air thickened. The walls began to breathe again, and on their surface, faint words began to emerge, scrawled in some wet, dark substance that smelled like rust. Papk found us. Papk came back. Papk stayed. The mirrors rippled, and from their depths I saw shadows, figures I'd met in past cases, faces I thought I'd forgotten. Every one of them stared at me accusingly, eyes hollow, mouths forming my name in silence. I backed toward the door, but the floorboards had changed beneath my boots. The wood wasn't wood anymore. It was slick, glassy, reflecting my own pale face beneath me. The whole house was becoming one vast mirror, and I was trapped inside it. Then came the whisper, soft but close enough that I felt its breath in my ear. There is no outside, Papk. You're part of the story now. The candle flame flickered once, then twice, and went out. When darkness came, I didn't see my reflection anymore. I felt it, breathing, moving. Somewhere just behind me, the dark was alive. I could hear it shifting, folding, stretching itself thin around the room. Each breath I took seemed to drag sound out of it, small, wet clicks, like glass grinding on bone. I didn't dare turn around, because I knew that if I did, whatever stood there would be looking back not as me, but instead of me. The air shimmered faintly, as though the house were exhaling after holding its breath too long. The walls had become a single, unbroken surface of black glass. I saw flashes of light inside it, faint and trembling. Memories, maybe. Elara, the missing brother, the hundreds of faces from the walls. They weren't gone. They were all here, moving behind the mirror like things swimming beneath ice. A voice spoke again, my own voice, steady now, calm in a way that chilled me. It's better this way. No one ever leaves the house. They only trade sides. The temperature dropped. My breath fogged, forming pale clouds that drifted toward the glass and froze midair. Something began to write itself into the frost. Tell her the door is open. Elara, I whispered. My voice cracked. Where is she? For a moment, no answer. Then, from within the mirror, a hand pressed up against the inside, small, shaking, human. Her hand. She mouthed something, but I couldn't hear it. I leaned closer, desperate to read her lips. The reflection of me did the same, but it didn't stop when I did. It kept moving until its forehead touched the glass, and then it began to push through. The surface rippled, bending outward. My own face emerged, smiling with that wrong, perfect calm. I told you, it whispered. You can't break what you are. It placed a glass hand on my shoulder. Cold, heavy, and then, softly, almost tenderly. It's your turn. Its hand lingered on my shoulder, weightless yet impossibly heavy, like a thought I could never unthink. The house was quiet now, waiting, as though even the walls wanted to see what I'd do next. I turned, and for the first time, I saw my reflection outside the mirror. It looked real, skin, eyes, breath frosting in the cold. But where my heart should have beat, light flickered through cracks beneath its ribs. The mirror's heart, still alive. Behind it, Elara's face hovered faintly in the glass. She was whispering again, over and over. The door is open. The door is open. I followed her gaze, and there it was. At the end of the hall where no door had been before, a faint golden light seeped through the outline of a frame. The air smelled of rain and distant thunder. The reflection smiled. That's where you go, it said. That's where I came from. It stepped aside, offering the path like a gentleman holding open the way to ruin. I walked slowly, my boots echoing too loudly. Every step felt like walking through memory. The voices of the house murmuring behind me, the glass whispering my name in 100 tones. When I reached the threshold, I stopped. In the reflection of that faint golden light, I saw both of us, me and the other me, standing together. One solid, one shimmer. One bound to the dark, one desperate to leave it. Then Elara's voice came again, softer now, fading. If you open the door, you take the house with you. The floor quaked. The mirrors began to crack from end to end, light spilling out like blood. The reflection reached for me, smiling, pleading, or maybe warning. I turned the handle. A blinding light swallowed everything, walls, whispers, mirrors, and me. And in that last instant before the world inverted, I heard the house exhale one final word, deep and tender, like a secret given back to its keeper. Papk. Then, nothing. No sound. No house. Only the faint reflection of a man who wasn't sure if he'd left or if he'd just become the door itself.